Well, Speaker Pelosi pulling in the House Rules Committee to consider the framework for the infrastructure bill, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and that $3.5 trillion spending plan. The move intensifying a showdown between fellow Democrats, including those moderates in the Problem Solvers Caucus. Listen, they've demanded a straightforward vote on infrastructure before they would tackle this gargantuan spending bill. Republican Congressman Guy Reschenthaler of Pennsylvania joins me now. And Congressman, it seems to me Speaker Pelosi, she's really holding this bipartisan infrastructure bill hostage. We see it. It's pretty plain. She's daring the moderates in her party to try to stop her. Walk us through the process. First, your thoughts on whether the moderates will stand up to her. Secondly, what's happening here? Why is this whole procedure so important?
Yeah, sure, Charles. I'd be happy to. And as always, thanks for having me on. Please just call me Guy. Let's just start with the mechanics here. So I just stepped out of the Rules Committee. And what's happening there is that Nancy Pelosi is combining all three of these bills, like you said, into one rule, meaning that the Democrats will have to vote not individually on each bill or not for each individual bill to bring it to the floor. They'll have to vote on all of them in one vote, which makes it incredibly hard to parse this out. So it's just one way in which he's forcing, I hate saying moderate Democrat, because there's really only, I think, one moderate Democrat left in that party right now, or at least in the House. But the more traditional liberal Democrats, it's pitting them against the liberal progressives. Now, once this, I believe this will pass at a Rules Committee. The question is, will the entire floor pass the rule to call up these three bills? Because remember, Nancy Pelosi, despite the rule, is still insisting that we vote on what I call Bernie Sanders' budget, the $3.5 trillion spending spree. Right. She's still insisting that we vote on that prior to the transportation and infrastructure bill. Now, to answer the other question, will the Democrats hold strong? Will the traditional Democrats hold strong? I don't know. I know that oftentimes I'm wrong when I bet against Nancy Pelosi's power within that party, because she does rule that conference with an iron fist. So she's probably putting she's probably putting the screws to these 9 or so Democrats who are saying they won't vote for the $3.5 trillion before the T&I package.
But we know that let's face it, lawmakers have to come home with something. So I mean, she's got the carrot or the stick. Maybe she's putting the screws to them, but what is she going to offer them in return? Because it's pretty clear. Listen, the progressives aren't saying much. They probably feel pretty comfortable that this is going to get through. Now, but the margin is also thin. You mentioned one person. I'd love to know who that is, by the way, this one true moderate that you're talking about. But is it still possible that at least 3 of them stand their ground?
Well, you have 9 that are saying no. So as you just said, we need 3 to stand their ground. But Nancy Pelosi has all kind of levers within the House. Not only is she this monster fundraiser in that party, but she also can do everything from controlling the members' schedule to things that, in fact, impact their everyday life. Now, if Kevin McCarthy tried to do something like that, the Republicans would be in revolt, because we understand that individuals have the ability to make choices here. With Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, it's all about Nancy Pelosi and pushing her agenda. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But Charles, if I could just step back here, Nancy Pelosi is really showing the true colors of her and the entire Democrat Party, because she's now prioritizing those rabid liberal progressives, AOC and the others, over the more traditional liberal Democrats. Because if she prioritized the traditional liberal Democrats, then we would vote on the transportation and infrastructure package first. But she has to placate that radical base and that radical element that now I think is the majority of the party.
Yeah, whether it's the majority or not, they certainly have, seems like, the most influence, which is all that really matters, to your point. You still haven't told me the moderate Democrat, but before you do that, I don't want to run out of time without mentioning to the audience who may not know, you're a Navy vet. In fact, you were a member of the Judge Advocate Generals, the JAG Corps, if you will, in Iraq. How does it feel? How do you feel watching what's going down in Afghanistan right now?
Well, I'm horrified, Charles. And, we could have a discussion whether or not we should have stayed in Afghanistan or not. I think we should have always had a presence at Bagram Air Force Base at the minimum. But the fact that we're now pulling out like this, retreating, and in essence, handing this country back over to the Taliban after being there for 20 years is heartbreaking. It weakens our prestige on the international stage. It makes us more vulnerable now to countries like China and Russia. And it's an absolute embarrassment the way this was done and the way it was conducted. So I am horrified. And this, mark my words, Charles, this retreat, this surrender to the Taliban will be tattooed on Joe Biden's legacy for the rest of his life and moving forward. He has to own this. This will forever stain him, just like the hostage crisis did for Jimmy Carter. This will be with Joe Biden. And since you forced me into it, I'll give a shout out to who I think is the one last true moderate Democrat in the House of Representatives, and that's my good friend from Texas, Henry Cuellar. He's the only one that you can truly say is a blue dog Democrat. The rest, just look at their voting records. They vote 90% in lockstep with Pelosi.
I got to tell you, I have huge respect for Cuellar, Congressman Cuellar. He is for the people who sent him to Washington, D.C., period. Congressman Reschenthaler, so are you. We appreciate your time and your service to this country. Thank you.